Welcome to DEIJ Hot Takes. My name is Daryl Sinclair, and this is the podcast where we discover the bold and transformative ideas shaping diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice work today. In this episode, we are joined by Rachel Cannon, who is the Inclusion and Belonging Coordinator for Culturally Responsive Pedagogy at the American International School of Lagos. Rachel, thank you so much for joining us today. Please share with us the DEIJ Hot Take that guides your work.
Thank you, Daryl. All right, so my hot take is inclusion doesn't begin in a boardroom or even in a classroom. It starts with the smallest interactions, like greeting people in the hallway, for example. These micro moments of connection are the building blocks of genuine belonging.
Wow. So this is really nice for me because we're moving more to the granular and the personal experiences of DEIJ work. It's nice to move to this scale. So thank you. Could you please take us through what this means in the context of DEIJ work, why you feel this is a hot take, and how you make this a reality in your work?
So I feel like this is a hot take because, first of all, I don't want to say that I don't think policies and things like that aren't necessary. They're incredibly necessary. But I think it's a hot take because I think sometimes people want to jump straight to policy. And when
Mm.
they do that, they accidentally create this culture of distrust or maybe put people off of DEIJ. Whereas if you take the time beforehand to build these small connections within your community, which, like I said, can be as simple as greeting people in the hallway, giving people a smile. If you work in a classroom like I do, learning the names of the people that clean your classroom and thanking them for that. If you have an IT issue and you need to go visit the IT department before just saying, oh my gosh, I don't have internet, saying, hello, how is your day going? Okay, so I don't have internet. I need you to come solve this. But just being more intentional about creating a culture of authentic trust and kindness and compassion so that when these policies are eventually written and implemented, there's already something for them to stick to. I think that's something that we sometimes, in our sense of urgency to get the ball rolling, we feel like we're behind other schools, we're behind, where other institutions are. We forget that we have to lay that groundwork first.
Oh, well, thank you for that, because that starting point for the work, I think, can often be overlooked. You've made a wonderful point because if you don't get your policies right, it can actually have the opposite effect. But when you're thinking about these day-to-day cultures and establishing a culture for ready for change at your school, these day-to-day interactions, what steps do you take as an educator to ensure everyone is being intentional with how they engage with each other, or perhaps to model the interactions that you would like to see?
I mean, modeling interactions, I'm also a classroom teacher. I also teach third grade. And I'm really mindful that kids watch everything and they mimic us.
Mm.
And so, how I interact with my instructional assistant, how I interact with the members of maintenance staff that come fix something when we have an issue, I think modeling, greeting them by their name, asking them how their family is, asking them if they're having a good day before jumping right to the work, I think is a great place to start. Something else, like, again, I'm a classroom teacher, so I make a lot of parallels in my work with DEIJ to my work as a third grade teacher. I think about like behavior policies and having a student that maybe doesn't care about the behavior policy or hasn't really bought into the behavior policy. If you have a student that's consistently off task, having trouble with social interactions, not following instructions, if you just give the kid the handbook and say, hey, look, you've had two infractions, and on the third infraction, I'm going to call your parents. That kid is probably just going to rebel and get worse, right? So to me, like, again, making the parallel with the students, like if you have a student like that, we know it's about building relationships, building that rapport, checking in on them every day. You have to set that groundwork so that then when they do mess up, you can have a conversation with them. Hey, so it's the time now where we call your parents. The kid's going to be like, yeah, I know. You're going to already have this relationship with them. So it's the same for me with modeling this behavior as a leader in a school. And really, it's important for senior leaders to be the ones modeling this behavior, though I will say that these micro interactions really democratize DEIJ in a way because anyone can do them. Anyone can smile at someone else. Anyone can say, hi, how's your day? But still, when we're modeling this stuff, I think it is important that senior leadership model it so that then we feel inspired to pass it on to somebody else.
Mm.
Also, as a facilitator of DEIJ initiatives, you can have workshops based around these things. You can be really intentional about who you set at tables next to each other. You can be really intentional about the prompts that you want people to talk around when you lead a workshop or a PD about anything. So, bringing people together, modeling how you interact with different people, especially if those people are perceived to be beneath you or, working in some kind of capacity that doesn't have as much status.
Yeah.
Um, and then me being in West Africa, really being mindful of West African culture about it's like impolite to walk past someone and not greet them or to ask for a favor and not greet someone at first. So I think once you've established this kind of a culture of trust, you're doing all these other things in the background too. You're breaking barriers, you're bringing down biases, you're opening people's minds so that when these DEIJ policies or initiatives are implemented, people are like, you know what? The people leading these initiatives, I have a little bit of trust in them, or I have a little bit of faith, or I want to be a part of that. Is really the what the best outcome could be, I think.
And I love how you describe that. Work that I've been involved with in the past very much speaks to this idea of showing modeling through how you engage with people. So, like you said, very important for SLT to model the way that they speak to teachers with respect and they empower the teachers around them. Colleagues working at an international school with many people from many different backgrounds, demonstrating to the students that you give each of them the same respect and you platform their voices in the same way. Also, with the students, in my time teaching in the classroom, definitely sometimes you'll have that formation of cliques in a class, and there'll be one student who the rest of the class may not be as kind to as they should. And as a teacher, platforming them and giving them the opportunity to teach the class and demonstrating the respect that you give that child can inspire others to recognize, hey, this is another human being. This is someone who is worthy and deserves respect in the same way that all people should in an equitable society. And therefore, when the policies come through, everyone's already primed with this idea of I treat everyone I come across, irrespective of who they are or their identity, with respect. And I love that. So thank you so much for that. I've got one last question, but it's just a quick one. Um, what you're describing here for me very much is synonymous with the B, so belonging, DEIB, and these approaches. In your experience so far, we were talking earlier about some of the excellent your work you're doing with the HR department. How do you feel that this, in reality, will support the systemic change which will come next? How do you see these two, the systemic change and the more personal change? How do you see those two as being related?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, especially considering that I work in an international schools. Anyone that works in an international school knows that we come and we go as expats. But the people that stay behind, stay there, they're the local staff, right? So they have to get on board these initiatives. It has to be about them. It has to come from their ideas, has to come from their values, has to come from their voices. They have to be a part of all these decisions that are being made, or guess what? As soon as you get on the airplane to go, they're going to be like, nope, this doesn't work for us. So if you really want to sustain any kind of change around inclusion, belonging, DEIJB, it has to be informed by, driven by, led by members of the local culture. That's what's going to make it sustainable. And that's what's going to make these changes systemic.
Yeah, thank you so much. And just as a final point for every episode, what would be your key takeaway for our listeners? It could be a resource, a book, or just some reflective questions. What would you like them to take away from listening to you today?
Well, I mean, in terms of a resource, I think Adrienne Marie Brown's Emergent Change is a really great book for, theory, philosophy for anyone to read. And I think it really encapsulates this hot take of small is all, small patterns resonate into larger change. But I really think that the key kind of message that I would like to leave listeners with is, if you think of like policy as the seeds, these
Mhm.
micro interactions are like the soil, how you treat people, the culture that you cultivate. The policy isn't going to grow in a corrupt, tainted soil. So you're really, really priming the soil for the really important policies that you'll develop in tandem with your local staff, with different members of your community.
I love that analogy, and you've got my mind racing with visualizations of this. So I do hope that as you do this work within your school, if you produce any resources, I'd love to share them. Thank you so much, Rachel, for sharing with us. For our listeners, I will place links in the description where they can connect with you and explore your ideas and your work. Thank you, everyone, for watching or listening, and I will see you on our next episode of DEIJ Hot Takes. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.